D-Lo for boxing. All right, y'all. So Demetrius Andrade and Jermall Charlo have somehow become a hot topic again. From what I can see, it's all kind of started with Charlo going on the live. He was on a live. I guess it was on Twitter or something. And he was talking to people in his comment section, and then he started talking about he won't smoke with Boo Boo and so forth and so on. And, of course, that turned into people taking that, running with it, and acting as if they thought we were about to get a unification bout between these two fighters. And then, of course, as usual, it materializes into nothing. One thing I will say about that is Jermall Charlo has made a habit of talking about not wanting to fight Demetrius Andrade, he'll never fight Andrade, and so forth and so on, when Andrade has a fight lined up. So, it's just one of those things. When Andrade doesn't have a fight lined up, Charlo seems uninterested in fighting him and is very vocal about that. And, it's basically stood firm that he has no interest in fighting Demetrius Andrade. But then he'll switch it and say, well, he'll fight him, but Andrade should do XYZ first. So, and then we find ourselves in a situation where Andrade has other obligations, like where he is right now, where he's being ordered to face a mandatory, although he just had a mandatory not very long ago, or at least a guy who filled in for the mandatory, and Liam Williams, who stood in the gap when Jaime Munguia wouldn't. My understanding was WBO went down the list because Munguia turned it down and Liam Williams was the next guy. But maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe they looked at that as a voluntary because Liam Williams called Andrade out and Andrade accepted. So I don't know. But my point is, Munguia was the mandatory again, still turned it down. They went down the list, and now they have Janovic, and they're saying Andrade has to fight him. Andrade already talked about potentially moving up to 168. So there are two things that Andrade's already kind of locked in on doing. And then all of a sudden, Jermall Charlo, once again, comes out of the woodwork saying he now wants to fight. Actually, from what I saw, I didn't hear him saying he wants to fight. I heard him talking about what he'd do to Andrade, and he, J-Rock Williams him and all that stuff like that. But, it's whatever. For me personally, I've been very vocal about wanting to see this fight. Very vocal about the fact that it's not a fight that I just have a foregone conclusion in my mind about who wins. You know what I'm saying? I have inclinations about how the fight could play out one way or the other, but I can see scenarios where either guy wins the fight. But right now, it doesn't look like we're getting that fight. It looks like it's just a whole bunch of, people taking one line from a video and then, basically, making it seem as if we were about to get the fight, and then now disappointed because we're not getting the fight. I don't think Jermall Charlo versus Demetrius Andrade is a fight that you should get excited about getting until you've actually seen some serious evidence that we're moving in the direction of getting that fight. Lastly, I just want to say one more thing. I, as a boxing fan, want to see the fight, but I hear a lot of people who primarily are vocally, on the side of Charlo, big Charlo fans, or either they just don't like Andrade, they're biased toward Andrade, whatever the case may be. I hear a lot of reference to what happened 7, maybe 8 years ago now, when Jermall Charlo and Andrade were supposed to fight, when Jermall was up and coming. I think Andrade was a champion at the time, and the fight fell through in the 11th hour behind money. And, it wasn't a good look for Andrade, but people are still talking about that in 2022. And I feel like if you start your video off, any Andrade versus Charlo video off, or any Andrade critiquing video off, or at some point during your argument, against why, Andrade gets treated like he does, and you're still talking about something that happened 8 years ago, I don't even think it's worthwhile for you to even be talking about Andrade. You know, because nobody else just gets overly scrutinized for stuff that happened that long ago. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's water under the bridge at this point. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, Jermall Charlo has moved on and done better things since that point. So too has Andrade. If it hurt anybody worse of the two, Andrade was the one that hurt the worst. You know what I'm saying? I mean, for all intents and purposes, that might have been a blessing in disguise for Jermall Charlo that he didn't get the Andrade fight. He could have very well ended up like Lubin did when he fought him. You know, we just don't know. But my whole point is, you know, where Jermall Charlo is right now is where he is right now. Where Jermall Charlo is right now is where he is right now. Where Andrade is right now is where he is right now. And right now, those guys are in a position to where they can make a fight, and we don't have to keep talking about what happened 8 years ago as if it's an excuse for Andrade not to get fights he deserves versus whoever. You know what I'm saying? Or fights he feel like he deserves, rather. So, you know, for me, I'm all for seeing the fight. I wish it would be announced today that they're going to be fighting a couple months from now, whatever. But I strongly doubt that's going to be the case, and I'm not going to act as if I'm terribly disappointed about it, because at this point, it's a fight that I almost don't expect to see anytime soon without something major happening in the landscape of boxing. But that's all I got on it. D-Lo404 Boxing. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me say one more thing about this. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm out. Peace.
Canelo, you a bitch. I'm putting it out there. No, I don't like to disrespect men that step into the ring, but then you fighting Kirtland that hasn't been in the ring since Glenn Tapia, when you have an opportunity to fight Demetrius Andrade for the WBO. Damn, I thought in the sport of boxing, people want to be a champion, to have that title. I understand.